There's a different kind of calm that creeps in when you finally stop holding on so tight. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with a celebration. It just shows up in the quiet when your mind is too tired to keep pretending that everything's fine. You wake up one day and realize you're not just physically tired. You're tired in a deeper way. The kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. Tired of pushing. Tired of performing. Tired of clinging to things you know are already gone. And in that moment, a question shows up. Simple but sharp. Why am I still holding on? We've been taught that letting go is giving up. That surrender looks like failure. But what if it's not? What if that idea is the very thing keeping us stuck? Because sometimes what we call trying is really just us fighting a reality we already know is true. And reality doesn't budge. You can push against it all you want, but it doesn't move for you. That kind of resistance is exhausting. It drags you down while convincing you that if you just try a little harder, control a little more, everything will settle. But the control, we cling to that feeling of managing every little detail. So nothing surprises us. It's not safety. It's a cage. And it's heavy. It wears you out long before you even notice it's happening. The strange thing is the second you loosen your grip, not from fear, but from trust, you feel the shift. Something opens. Breathing changes. You walk differently. Not because everything is fixed, but because nothing owns you anymore. Not the past. Not their opinions. Not the version of yourself you've been stuck performing. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop being someone you never chose to be. That's when you become untouchable. But here's where things get murky. Letting go sounds simple. People say it all the time. Just let it go. Just move on. As if it's as easy as flipping a switch. But when you've carried something for years, an identity, a role, a memory, it doesn't just fall away. It's wrapped around you. You might have always been the one who shows up. The strong one. The fixer. The one who forgives too fast. You start to believe that if you step out of that role, people will walk away. And maybe they will. But if they only stuck around for the version of you that was always hurting, always bending, always sacrificing, was that really love? Or was it something else? There's a kind of loyalty that doesn't come from strength. It comes from pain. And when we confuse the two, we abandon ourselves. We wear pain like armor and call it love. But living in chaos doesn't make peace the enemy. It just makes peace unfamiliar. Stillness doesn't mean something's wrong. It might mean you're finally free. Letting go doesn't make you careless. It means you care about your peace too much to keep giving it away. You don't owe anyone your presence at the cost of your own clarity. And clarity is exactly what begins to grow when you stop pretending. Pretending you're okay. Pretending that the drama doesn't drain you. Pretending that saying yes all the time doesn't slowly kill the parts of you that want to say no. You start choosing what to entertain, not out of spite, but because your peace stopped being negotiable. The moment you truly release something fully, not halfway, not with conditions or expectations, everything changes. You don't react as quickly. You don't spiral from one comment or one look. You stop relying on others to affirm who you are. Silence stops being scary. Solitude starts to feel like home. And when you walk into rooms now, you don't shrink. You expand. People feel that before you ever say a word. It's an energy, that says, I'm no longer playing small, just to be safe. Letting go rebuilds you. It takes down the old architecture, the part of you that needed to be needed, the part that needed to prove, and in its place, something steadier rises, something more solid. And when you taste even a moment of that freedom, you can't help but wonder why you waited so long to step into it. But not everyone will understand this new version of you. There's something that happens when you stop playing roles that others have grown comfortable with, when you stop being predictable, when you stop explaining yourself or rushing to smooth over discomfort or saying what people want to hear just to keep the peace. The people who benefited from that version of you, they'll feel it, and not all of them will cheer. They might pull back, get distant, say you've changed, because you have. You're no longer a mirror for their expectations. You're no longer someone they can guilt or shape or control through silence. And for some people, your freedom will make them uncomfortable, not because you hurt them, but because your healing reminds them they're still stuck. But that's not your responsibility. You don't owe anyone the version of you that destroyed your inner world. You don't have to keep performing pain just to make others feel safe. Once you stop needing approval for your growth, everything starts falling into place. You don't chase. You don't force conversations. You stop needing closure from people who couldn't even offer basic honesty. There's no need to search for signs. Peace doesn't hide. It doesn't make you guess. It just is. When things stop feeling forced, when the energy around you no longer makes you second-guess yourself, that's when you know you've returned to alignment. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's just calm. Letting go teaches you that peace isn't hidden in control. It's revealed in surrender. Not the kind of surrender that says, I quit, but the kind that says, I'm done pretending. And with that honesty, everything sharpens. People, patterns, your own thoughts. You stop coloring in red flags with hope. You stop calling chaos passion. You stop spinning in circles trying to make dysfunction feel like love. What replaces it isn't flashy. It's still. It's quiet. And at first, it can feel empty. But if you sit with it long enough, you realize that quiet isn't emptiness. It's clarity. And clarity is where your power begins to rebuild. She held on for years. Everyone thought things were fine. Smiles in photos, casual affection at parties, little jokes that looked like love from a distance. But behind the scenes, it was war. Not the loud kind. Not fights or shouting or doors slammed shut. It was the other kind. The kind that breaks you without ever raising its voice. There were no bruises. Just tension that never left the room. Just long silences where she questioned herself more than she questioned him. It was the kind of pain that doesn't make sense until you're already neck deep in it. Emotional manipulation wrapped in soft tones and careful timing. And for a long time, she thought it was her fault. She kept trying to fix herself, thinking maybe if she just loved harder, or stayed quieter, or did things perfectly, then maybe he'd give her back the version of himself she fell for. But it never came. She ended up shrinking herself so small that she barely recognized the woman staring back at her in the mirror, always apologizing, always overthinking, constantly editing her words before they left her mouth, just in case they triggered something. That's how slow the erosion is. It doesn't feel like breaking. It feels like dissolving. Little by little, piece by piece, until you forget what it felt like to simply breathe without fear. And yet she stayed. Because the thought of letting go felt worse than the pain of holding on. It felt like quitting on a dream, on a story she'd invested years in. It felt like failure. But what she didn't know, what no one tells you, is that sometimes letting go isn't the end of something. Sometimes it's the beginning of finally coming back to life. The change wasn't explosive. It wasn't some dramatic exit. One day, something inside her just shifted. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't explain herself. She got quiet, packed a bag, left the key, walked out the door. No speech, no begging, just a clean, solid kind of peace. Later, when we talked, she told me that the silence right after that moment, that first breath of freedom, was the scariest thing she'd ever felt. And also, the most sacred. For the first time in years, she could breathe deep. Not just survive, not just endure, but breathe fully, chest open, mind clear. That's what letting go gave her. Not just her space, herself. And once that happens, once you taste that kind of return, you don't go back. You can't. The things that used to grip you with fear or guilt or shame, they lose their teeth. You don't flinch when people raise their voices. You don't explain yourself to those who never really listened. You don't give parts of yourself away just to keep someone else comfortable. Because now you choose. With calm. With clarity. With self-trust that wasn't handed to you, it was reclaimed. What's wild is what happens next. You think the reward is peace, and it is. But what also shows up is clarity, the kind that slices through the noise. Suddenly, everything that once felt complicated becomes obvious. The people who gave you mixed signals, you see right through them. The stress you used to carry around like a second skin, you don't even recognize it anymore. And looking back, you don't get angry. You just wonder, how did I let that go on for so long? But you don't shame yourself for it. Because when you're in survival mode, when your nervous system is living in fear, you don't see clearly. You're not thriving. You're managing. You're patching holes in a sinking ship, hoping no one notices you're drowning. Letting go gives you your eyes back. It hands your intuition back to you, cleaned off, restored. That quiet voice inside you, the one you used to bury beneath reason and logic and politeness, it gets louder. Not aggressive, just certain. You don't need explanations anymore. You don't need closure from someone who couldn't give you honesty. You stop translating silence. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who only respond when you're hurting. That clarity changes everything. Because once you really see, you can't unsee. Once you feel that breath, the real one, you stop settling for half air. You don't become heartless. You don't become cold. You become rooted, still. A presence that doesn't ask for approval or apologize for its boundaries. You start showing up differently, not in volume, but in weight. There's something unshakable about someone who no longer needs to be chosen to feel whole. You're no longer rattled by distance. You're not triggered by delay. You're not begging for text messages or reading too deeply into passive silence. Because you found the answer in something deeper than reassurance, you found it in peace. And the things that stay, the people, the patterns, the energy that remain after you stop chasing, those are the ones worth holding. When you move from wholeness, you stop needing. You stop reaching. You stop pouring into places that were never meant to hold you. And what comes back to you now, it's different. It's not here to complete you. It's here to meet you. And maybe that's what letting go was really about all along. Not losing, not giving up, but clearing the path. So that the next chapter doesn't have to fight through the noise of who you thought you had to be. There's something strange that happens once you stop being controlled. You begin to see just how many small, quiet strings were tugging at you the whole time. Not in dramatic ways, most of it was subtle, harmless on the surface. The kind of stuff that gets dismissed as normal. Like how checking your phone first thing in the morning became second nature. Not to connect, but to brace. You hadn't even said good morning to yourself, and already your peace was out of your hands. Or how someone else's bad mood could hijack your entire day. Not because they said anything, but because deep down, you still felt responsible for making everyone around you okay, even when you weren't. Then there were the times you said yes, not because you meant it, but because saying no felt too heavy. Because keeping the peace was easier than explaining your discomfort, even when it meant betraying yourself. That's how quiet the control becomes. It doesn't scream. It disguises itself as duty, as kindness, as politeness, as being a good person. And the longer it sticks around, the more normal it feels. You start calling it personality. You start thinking, that's just who you are. But it's not. It's a pattern. And like most patterns, it doesn't break until you choose to see it for what it is. And when you finally do, there's no big explosion, no grand exit, just a shift. Things get uncomfortable first, then they get quiet, then they get clear. That quiet part, that middle space, it's the one no one talks about. It's not glamorous. It's not dramatic. It's the moment after the door closes, but before the next one opens. You're not who you were anymore, but you're not quite who you're becoming yet either. It's like standing in a hallway alone, not sure what comes next. And in that silence, a lot of people panic. They run back to what broke them. Not because they forgot, but because at least the pain was familiar. The newness feels foreign. And in that foreign space, even peace can feel uncomfortable. Like maybe something's missing. Like maybe you made a mistake. But if you stay long enough, if you let yourself settle into that stillness, something unexpected happens. You realize you're okay. The noise was never keeping you safe. The chaos wasn't keeping you alive. It was just what you were used to. And without it, you start to see how little you actually need. Not in a minimalist kind of way, but in a soul kind of way. The things you thought were essential, the things you bent yourself backwards to maintain, they were just distractions. Weight you didn't need to carry. And in that realization, the rebuild begins. Not from urgency, not from fear, but from stillness. You stop rushing. You stop performing. You stop proving. And little by little, the world around you begins to change, not because you forced it to, but because you stopped letting it pull you in every direction. You meet people who don't drain you. Conversations that don't leave you second-guessing everything you said. You start doing things that feel like home. Not the kind of home built on survival, but one built on truth. It feels strange at first. There's no chaos to react to. No drama to solve. No eggshells to tiptoe over. Just space. Just time. Just you. And in that space, something real begins to grow. Not the version of you that learned how to survive. The version of you that's always been there, quiet, steady, waiting. That's who finally comes forward. Not perfect, not polished, but present, real. And when you start living from that place, things don't just get easier, they get lighter. Not because life stops being hard, but because you've stopped making it harder by carrying what was never yours. You stop participating in things that pull you away from yourself. You stop keeping connections alive just because they've always been there. You stop defending your boundaries like they're a crime scene. Instead, you just live. You breathe. You speak. You move. From alignment. And it's not loud. It's not performative. You're not announcing your peace to the world. You're just embodying it. And that energy, people feel it. They don't always know how to name it, but they recognize something different, something grounded, something that doesn't flinch. Because now, you're not moved by fear. You're not bending to pressure. You're not searching for something to fill the silence. You've made peace with the silence. You've learned to trust it. And in that trust, there's power. Not the kind that demands control, but the kind that no longer needs to prove anything. The kind that walks into a room without shrinking. The kind that sits with discomfort without spiraling. The kind that no longer negotiates with things that cost too much. That's what letting go gives you. Not just freedom from the past, but access to a version of yourself that was buried underneath the noise, underneath the fear, underneath the pretending. And once you meet that version of you, truly meet them, you stop going back. You stop settling. You stop lying to yourself just to keep others comfortable. You simply live, not for them, not for image, but for you. There's something unspoken that happens when you finally stop clinging. The world doesn't look the same. You don't move the same. You're not scanning the room for approval. You're not bracing for someone's reaction before you speak. That old version of you, the one who stayed small to keep the peace, that person starts to fade. And what replaces it isn't louder. It's just calmer, still, grounded in something deeper. Maybe that's why people start to notice, even if you don't say a word. They can feel it, that shift, that steadiness. You're not begging to be seen anymore. You're not forcing conversations to prove you're worthy. You're not explaining your peace to people who only knew you through your chaos. It's not that you don't care. It's that you finally understand what's worth caring about. Letting go doesn't just give you freedom. It gives you perspective. You see things you couldn't before. You look back at certain people, certain moments, and wonder how you ever convinced yourself that was normal. But you don't shame yourself for it. You were doing the best you could with what you had. And now you just see more. You see clearly. That kind of clarity doesn't come from books or advice. It comes from silence. From staying in the in-between long enough to let the noise settle. From walking away without knowing exactly what comes next, but trusting that it has to be better than what you've been forcing. Maybe that's where the real courage is, not in knowing the outcome, but in walking away without one. In letting the story end without a clean final chapter. No closure, no big goodbye. Just choosing peace over the need for understanding. And when you do that, when you truly let go of what was never yours to fix you, get something back that's hard to describe. It's not a high. It's not a rush. It's a kind of quiet strength. The kind that lets you move without checking who's watching. The kind that doesn't flinch when someone pulls away. The kind that doesn't need the last word. Because now you don't need to win. You just need to be well. And in that wellness, there's no room for games, No space for people who only show up when it's convenient. No patience for roles you outgrew a long time ago. You're not angry. You're just done. Done performing. Done proving. Done over-explaining. Some people won't like that. They'll feel the distance and take it personally. But that's not on you. You're not responsible for how others respond to your healing. You're not here to shrink back into a role just because someone else preferred you that way. Letting go means choosing honesty over comfort. Choosing yourself even when it's messy, even when it's quiet, even when no one else understands. And if you've made it this far, if something in you has stayed with these words, it probably means you already know. Maybe you've been carrying things too long. Maybe you've been fighting battles that aren't even yours. Maybe you've been holding on hoping it would hurt less if you stayed a little longer. But you're allowed to stop. You're allowed to put it down. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a moment. One honest moment where you let the truth rise up. And if it tells you that something has to end, believe it. Because something better doesn't arrive when you're ready. It arrives when you make space. And letting go is how that space is made. It's not a dramatic act. It's not a big declaration. It's quiet. It's internal. It happens in the stillness between the last time you begged for clarity and the first time you realized you didn't need it anymore. From that point on, you begin again. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with intention. The kind that doesn't chase, the kind that doesn't perform, the kind that doesn't settle for scraps and call it connection. What comes next may not be perfect. It may not be immediate, but it will be real. Because it's coming from the you that's no longer held together by fear or shame or pressure. And that version of you, that grounded, unshakable version, isn't looking for peace. They are peace. And when you finally understand that you stop searching, you stop settling, you stop shrinking, you stop asking permission to feel whole. You just are. So, if something inside you has shifted even a little, let it. Let it grow. Let it take up space. Let it rewrite everything you thought you had to be. And if you're ready, if your spirit is tired of the wait, it's okay to say it. Speak it out loud. Write it somewhere. Let yourself name what you're releasing. Because sometimes healing begins not in fixing something broken, but in finally walking away from something that was never yours to carry in the first place. And when you do, you don't just find peace. You find yourself